Hi guys, welcome to Let's Get to the Marks. Today we're looking at the gills, which are the exchange surface in fish. Humans have an exchange surface that's their lungs that exchanges oxygen with carbon dioxide. We also have the small intestines, the walls of the small intestines, which are covered in villi, and they exchange food substances with the blood. So what we're looking at with fish is fish don't have lungs, fish have gills, and they're exchanging substances with the water and the blood. And they have gill filaments and lamellae, which give them a large surface area. And this is instead of alveoli, which you would find in our lungs. But also, just like the alveoli, the gill lamellae and filaments have a thin wall, which allows a short diffusion pathway. So it's very quick for oxygen to move across the wall and into the fish's blood. But also, fish require a good blood supply. Just like our alveoli, the blood's got to be really close to the gills. And that way, it's a short way for the oxygen to get into the blood. There's an extra thing that fish have, and a system called the countercurrent flow system. And this is where the blood and the water flow in opposite directions. And this maintains a steep concentration gradient between the water and the blood. So oxygen is always moving from the water into the blood, and the fish aren't losing oxygen that way. Now, when a fish swims, imagine if the blood flowed over the gills in the same direction. And that's what we've got here. This is a bad thing, and this doesn't happen. But in order to understand why fish have a countercurrent, we're going through this. So the red arrow's the blood, the blue arrow's the water, the gold circle's the oxygen. If the blood and the water were flowing in the same direction across the fish's gills, which way would the oxygen diffuse? Well, it would be a good thing. It would diffuse from the water into the blood across the gills. That's great. And we can see here it's going from a high oxygen concentration in the water to low in the blood. So what's the problem with this system if the blood and water are flowing in the same direction? What could be the problem? What's going to happen as the oxygen leaves the water and goes into the blood? Look here. Look at the concentration of oxygen in the blood now compared to the concentration of water that's running parallel to it. The oxygen concentration is higher in the blood now than in the water. What's going to happen next? You guessed it. The oxygen's going to start diffusing back from the blood into the water, and our poor little fish, its respiring muscle cells are not going to receive oxygen from the blood, or not as much oxygen, and this is going to limit its ability to release energy. So fish don't have this system where the blood and water flow in the same direction. They have a counter current flow system where the blood and the water flow in opposite directions. And look what happens here. As soon as the water and the blood cross at the gills, oxygen is in a higher concentration in the water than in the blood. Great news. We get diffusion from the water to the blood. But as the blood moves past, it's always coming past fresh oxygen, fresh water with lots more oxygen. So it never gets to a state, you can see here, the blood that's already gone past the water is full of oxygen, but it's not got more oxygen than the water. So the water will always have more oxygen than the blood. And this means that there's always a concentration gradient going from the water to the blood. So we have diffusion from high to low happening all across the fish gills. This is a much more efficient system of oxygen getting into the fish's blood. And in summary, what do you need to know about fish gills in case a question comes up? They've got thin walls, just like the alveoli, short diffusion pathway. They have gill filaments and lamellae, just exactly like we have alveoli, millions of them. They have millions of gill filaments and lamellae, and they create a large surface area for rapid diffusion. They've also got the good blood supply, which is really important for all exchange surfaces. And finally, the blood and the water travel in opposite directions. So let's get to the marks.